Is this live?
Yeah, it'll be live.
It is? Oh boy. It's kind of cool.
All right, welcome New Bedford. We are here live with Dan Costa, Ward 1. A little bit busy of all the wards. It's got a few candidates in there. It's got 3. So we're here with Dan Costa to talk about why he's running for office. So tell me, Dan, why are you actually running for office for
Hey, Mike.
Ward 1?
How you doing, Mike?
Good, thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come in. I mean, this is a heck of a lot better than walking around, knocking on doors. It doesn't hurt my feet as much. So I appreciate being able to reach as many people as we're going to be able to reach here today. I'm doing this, frankly. Well, you'll hear a lot of candidates talk about, like, they've got a cause or there's, they've got time to do this now. But for me, those two things pertain, right? I do have time, and there are things that are important to me. But we were talking a little bit before. I just feel like I have to do this. I keep thinking about it. I'm sitting in traffic sometimes, and you keep waiting, and you're kind of daydreaming, and I'm thinking about things like that you can do to kind of cut the taxes, or how we can improve on services in the city. So yeah, so a little bit of me thinks that I have to do this because I just can't stop thinking about it.
So tell me, we'll start with the personal stuff. I married with kids?
Yeah. Married 28 years. Got 2 kids. Both of them are out of the house. Funny thing, right? They both graduated on the same day this year from college in May. So mom and dad were rushing around between Newport and Boston. But on the same day, I had our daughter graduated as a RN from Salve Regina. And then we rushed up to Boston, and our son graduated from law school from Suffolk Law on the same exact day. So pretty busy day, but pretty proud day for mom and I.
How about, what do you do for living right now, for work?
I'm an IT manager, so I've been in IT for a long time. I've been in IT so long, they used to call it data processing. That's how long I've been in IT, so it's 35 years.
Okay, so what I'm asking each of the candidates moving on to the political part of it is, how do you define the role of the city council?
Yeah. Well, so there's first of all, I'll let the job description be defined by the people I represent. So what's important to them is what I'll work on. So they'll just, they'll define my job description. But I mean, just ensuring that they're safe and that I do everything I possibly can to protect the value of their property. So I feel those 2 things are pivotal, extremely important.
Let's say you make it past October 1st into November and then into, you get elected.
Yeah.
What's the first priority in 2020?
Oh, I've got a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of things I'd like to work on, but I've been pretty vocal. I wrote a letter to the editor that was sent to the Standard Times and published about the recent issues at City Hall with the computer outage and the data breach. I'd finally like to get to the bottom of that. I'd really like to get my hands on that forensic study. I want to see what they've done to remediate the problem. I want to ensure that none of the public's data got out, especially those employees of City Hall. I mean, those variants will embed themselves into a network and stay there dormant sometimes for months and months, and you don't really realize the damage that they've caused sometimes for years. So I really want to get in there, and that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do for a living, and I know I can help there. Can you just picture what would happen if that variant were sitting there and had accessible to it personnel records? And those personal records just happen to include a policeman's home address.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The dark web is pretty easy to access. All you need is a browser, and you're there. So that data, potentially, is very dangerous. And it could be out there for sale in the future. So, I'm not trying to panic anyone, but someone really needs to look under the covers there and see what happened and put a study together, put some kind of long-term plan together that ensure that the city not only protects its data properly, but that they're set up for the future. you know, there are so many things that we can leverage in terms of technology, efficiency. I mean, you see it every day when you call City Hall. You call there, you need something done, and you'll talk to someone. They're very, very pleasant. They're very, very nice. And you ask them to fix your sidewalk, let's say, for example. 3 months down the road, you don't hear anything, and you call back. And then you get this exchange of phone calls back and forth, and nothing ever gets done, unless you call your city council, which is a whole other issue, right? But you know, I'd like to be able to look at things, putting things in place that will not cost the city a considerable amount, you know, anything substantial, but that will help track those issues. Picture sort of like a help desk. You know, you call up, yeah, Mr. Costa, thank you for calling. We're going to take care of your sidewalk. Your ticket number is number 3. You know, we've got 20 other requests for sidewalk fixes in the queue. You know, we deal with them based on severity, and we'll call you back. We'll let you know where things stand. That kind of stuff. You know, so the focus on the infrastructure in terms of the automation and computerization is important to be able to do things like that. And that's really where the future is going. You need to be able to provide that level of service, or you should be anyway.
Big issue every time I do polling on New Bedford Guide, the number one issue is always public safety.
Yeah.
So do you have a public safety plan, Ward 1? It's just, you can go Ward 1 specific if you want, or City of New Bedford.
So there's, so I always hesitate when I'm asked this question, just because I've got some pretty unique experience when it comes to public safety, right? And all I basically can say is that I sat on the Bristol County Grand Jury a couple of years ago for 3 months. I learned an awful lot about our city and what some people perceive as not a problem, that crime isn't an issue. Well, I can tell you firsthand that it is, and it needs to be addressed. You know, just the other day, I mentioned to you before, I went down to the candidate night down at the South End going to school, and they asked the counselors if they felt safe in their homes. I think the question was posed incorrectly, and I think it was answered wrong, right? It should have been, do your constituents feel safe in their homes, right? They all live in nice neighborhoods, but that's not the case for everyone in our city. So yeah, public safety is definitely an issue, and from my experience, you know, I learned that there's very, very, very little communication that takes place between the DA's office, the police department, and the city council. You put those 3 parties together, have them meet on a routine basis. You know, they can only share certain amounts of information, I understand that, but they might be able to share enough information to do something in a problem area. They might be able to do something with God, what's they tried to do it a couple of years ago, problem property, something of that nature. Right? So that's where the city council can lend a hand here, and that they can do something. I mean, also kind of just the judges. You know, I think there's issue with some of the judges. You know, I think they should sleep where they work, meaning they should probably live a little closer so they can see firsthand what's going on. So that in itself is something that I don't know as a counselor I'd be able to do much about, but it's just an opinion that I have.
Sure. So if you just tuned in, we're here live with Ward 1 candidate Dan Costa, talking issues. Share this video. If you have a question, throw it in. I'll ask Dan. So we'll go to the next question. So one of the issues that's been consistent, really for decades in New Bedford, is the family income in New Bedford is generally half of the income in Massachusetts.
Right.
Massachusetts, it's like 63,000. New Bedford's like 31 to 33,000.
Considerably less. Yeah.
Do you see a way to bring higher paid jobs into the city?
Well, yeah, you know, I'm sure that we can. I mean, I don't think we do a very good job at promoting the city, especially in terms of business. You know, all you got to do is drive through the city and look at the infrastructure. You know, you see the way the roads look. You know, and you get the impression that the city needs to do some work. There are some things too in terms of the airport, an airport expansion that would help potentially attract bigger businesses to the area. So yeah, no, there are certainly things that can be done, and I do think that we could attract some higher paying jobs. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. It's a question I ask. It's kind of a, you know, what's your philosophy on this? Which is addiction a disease or a choice? So in your view, what do you have for that?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it matters. So it's a person that needs help. You know, whether it's an addiction or a choice or a disease, it's someone that needs some help. So I don't think the labeling it does any good.
How about resources? City doing enough right now to fight addiction?
No, I don't think so, not at all. And we talked a little bit about public safety before. So that goes hand in hand, I believe, with that. So I think that there's a lot more that the city can do to get some of those bad players off the street and to hopefully lessen the amount of drugs that are coming into the city. So yeah.
Okay. Marijuana. So we just had 3 host city agreements signed. City council voted, approved it yesterday. What's your view on, New Bedford seems to be the last city that's going to get a retail store, right? What's your view on that? Too fast, too slow?
We seem to be too slow with a lot of things, Mike. Certainly too slow. You know, we're behind the curve. Again, not to keep repeating myself, but in a number of places, you know, with the marijuana distribution, certainly. But take a look at the neighboring city here, Fall River, and drive through there. I mean, they've got an Amazon. They've got this beautiful new South Coast marketplace that they've put up. Why aren't those businesses in our city? So I think we're just, we're a little too slow to react, I think, at times. Maybe too cautious, you know. Certainly you don't want to make a mistake, but if you're sitting still, you know you never stumble. And you got to move. You got to try these things. You've got to make an attempt to increase the tax base somehow, just to give folks of our city some kind of break.
Yeah, we interviewed Ian earlier today. He was saying that there's the cap of 8, and it's based on 20%
the liquor
ratio
stores,
compared to liquor. Do you think it should be a cap? Is 8 too low, too high?
I think it's something we can adjust later. You know,
you're comfortable with 8 right now?
I'm comfortable with 8 right now. Yeah.
Okay, so another big issue over I guess it's more recent, but it kind of comes up quite often, is the resident waivers for the city jobs.
Right.
It's been discussed again this week. The mayor submits these resident waivers. City council seems to approve all of them. Do you think it's the right thing? Would you change the way they do business?
I think I would change it slightly. So, I'd enforce the residency rule if that employee were maybe a non-exempt employee. Those that are exempt employees, the more skilled, the more professional type positions, then I can understand potentially looking outside the city for just that best person and then interviewing them. Not to say that person should be automatically given the position. Of course, they need to be the best candidate, so it should go to the best, most qualified person.
How about public housing? So there's generally thousands of people waiting on a New Bedford housing list.
Yeah.
I know it's a state issue, but of course, city council mayor can have influence over city building more or less. Do you think should we be stay at status quo? Should we add more housing, reduce housing?
Well, I don't know. My first impression would be yes, we should add more. And I'll tell you what I don't like. I don't like hearing that there are people living in cardboard boxes in the woods in certain parts of the city. So if adding public housing is going to help us there, anyway at all, then I think maybe we should get some more public housing. That's absolutely ridiculous. That shouldn't happen in our city.
So I'll go to some of the questions we got in the comments. So Sheila Hawkins asked, what is your view on the MBTA rail going to Church Street versus Kings Highway?
So I drove by there, and I live fairly close to there. Frankly, I like the location on Church Street, but I don't know enough about the amount of traffic that they're projecting. So I'd want to see the effect of traffic. I think that keeping it on Kings Highway is going to be more congested. There's already an issue there with traffic at this time. So this could potentially be a fix to that. I don't know. So just the general location, I kind of like. And if there's an issue with parking, I mean, it's quite easy to put, and they do it at all the other T stations. They'll just build a little bridge going over to the garage, of course, to the other parking lot. I mean, the city would have to acquire that property, or whoever, I'm not quite sure who would have to purchase it, but there's property to the back of that railway, and it'd be quite easy to just put like a little bridge over and park some cars on the other side. So I think the general area is fine.
Property taxes. So New Bedford has a higher rate than most of the other surrounding communities, even in Massachusetts. But the the non-discretionary spending is like vast majority of the budget. Do you think there's a way to either cut costs,
Oh, yeah.
increase revenue? What are some of your ideas?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, a couple of years ago, I took a really good look at the budget, and I did find a couple of areas where I thought some opportunity, right? And some of them actually were revenue generating, things like ambulance service and things of that nature. But I got to tell you, so I've been in IT, I told you before, for 35 years, and I've handled $6-7 million budgets. I've had those big OpEx budgets, and it seems like every year, I've had my boss knock on my door and say, I need 5% back. So I got to tell you, there's got to be some padding in there somewhere. Does it result in a lot of money? I can't tell you. But I know that there's money. I am pretty certain that we can find ourselves some money in that budget and free it up.
Yeah, I think the biggest issues are the pensions and the health insurance, and the city hasn't quite figured that out yet. I think it's more at the mayor's office level. But
Yeah,
do you think there's some ideas on that outside of the box, Lincoln, maybe that they haven't thought of?
Don't know about pensions. I mean, a couple of years ago, we did talk about health benefits, and I think it was MG 21 that was discussed, and I don't know if that's raised its head again. In terms of health benefits, I can tell you what some of the experiences that I've had where I've worked. I mean, especially at those companies that were self-insured, which I believe the city still is. Right? They invested money in wellness programs and things of that nature, and they found that by doing things like that in the long term, they were able to lessen, the cost of healthcare considerably. So maybe things like that, and that's maybe something that I'd suggest.
Final question, panhandling. It's been an up and down issue, more so a few years ago than today. City Council so far has put signs above their heads.
And cobblestone.
And the mayor has done the cobblestone spike.
Yeah, that really worked.
Do you think is it a freedom of speech issue, and is there anything else that you would do as a city councilor?
I don't, panhandling is okay. It's a problem, certainly a problem. It's an eyesore more than anything, right? The real problem lies underneath the panhandling, right? It's the homelessness, it's the hunger, it's the drug addiction and mental illness that's the problem, right? So, in the course of my campaign here, I tell you, I was doing some recordings, and I have it on my Facebook page, and I sat and I talked to a gentleman who's, an MBA, worked, 20 years maybe in the IT industry, and he found himself homeless at one point in time, right? He's bipolar. Right? So the point I want to make is that, I think people generalize. They see that person on the street corner, and they immediately think that person should be working. Why are they out there panhandling? They're going to use the money for booze or drugs, and that's not always the case. So although panhandling is, I hate to say it, that eyesore is that thing no one wants to look at. People are turned off by it. The panhandling really, we're not going to fix that until we fix those other things, those bigger issues. When we address those, then and if we still see people out in the corner asking for money, then I think we can approach it differently. But at this point in time, until we say with all certainty we've addressed all those underlying concerns, what are you going to do? If someone is poor, they need money, they haven't eaten. You're going to extend that person. That's what people in New Bedford do, right? There's some great people in this city, absolutely wonderful people in this city. You'll see that truck pull up, and the truck's all beat up, and the guy's worked hard all day. And he's the guy who rolls his window down, the guy who works in the waterfront, and he gives the guy a couple bucks. That's the kind of city we are, So we can't turn our back on someone who's potentially hurting, no fault of their own. We just can't do that.
You have a website and social media people can contact?
I do. I'm on Facebook, so it's Dan Costa, New Bedford City Council, Ward 1. It's pretty long. And then my email address is just dancosta1@comcast.net. Please reach out, send me an email. Check out the Facebook page, because I've got a ton of information there. And if you're just trying to get a sense for, how I might vote or how I might react in certain situations, that Facebook page will really give you a pretty good indication of how I might vote.
Yeah, I noticed you're pretty active on there, and you write up some thoughts,
Yeah,
a couple times a week,
I
right?
love to write.
Yeah.
I absolutely love to write. And I mentioned I wrote something for the Standard Times regarding the computer outage, and I enjoyed doing it. I got a call from Mr. Spillane, congratulating me because he actually thinks that the article that was put in the Standard Times prompted the mayor to have a press conference. So, because things were very, very quiet, and those things that I put in that article, he did in fact cover in his press conference. So maybe I started advocating for the people as a city councilor before actually becoming one. So,
Yeah, so thanks for coming in.
well, thank you, Mike.
So election is October 1st. There's 3 candidates for Ward 1. If Dan gets your vote, vote for him. Show up to vote October 1st. I always say don't complain if you don't vote. And then November 5th is election throughout the country and obviously in New Bedford. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming, Dan.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike.